Doctrine of Severability under Article 13. Introduction. Article 13 of the Constitution of India provides that laws inconsistent with fundamental rights are void. However, sometimes only a part of a law violates fundamental rights while the remaining part is valid. To deal with such situations, the courts apply the doctrine of severability. Meaning of Doctrine of Severability. The doctrine of severability means that if the invalid part of a law can be separated from the valid part, only the invalid portion will be declared void while the remaining law continues to operate. In simple terms, only the unconstitutional portion is removed, not the entire law. This doctrine ensures that valid provisions of a statute are preserved as far as possible. Basis under Article 13. Article 13 states that laws inconsistent with fundamental rights shall be void to the extent of inconsistency. This phrase forms the constitutional basis of the doctrine of severability. Thus, only the inconsistent portion becomes void. The rest of the law remains valid. Principles of Doctrine of Severability. Courts follow certain principles while applying this doctrine. Separable provisions. If the invalid part can be separated from the valid part, only that portion is struck down. Legislative intention. Courts examine whether the legislature would have enacted the law without the invalid part. Independent operation. The valid portion must be capable of functioning independently. If inseparable. If valid and invalid parts are closely connected, the entire law becomes void. Important case laws. 1. RMD Chamarbagwala v. Union of India. Facts. The Prize Competitions Act regulated prize competitions. Some provisions affected competitions involving games of skill, which were legal. Held. The Supreme Court struck down only the invalid provisions relating to games of skill and kept the rest of the Act valid. Principle. If invalid provisions can be separated from valid ones, only the unconstitutional portion will be removed. 2. A.K. Gopalan v. State of Madras. Facts. Certain provisions of the Preventive Detention Act were challenged as violating fundamental rights. Held. The court declared Section 14 invalid but allowed the rest of the Act to continue. Principle. Unconstitutional provisions can be severed without affecting the whole law. 3. State of Bombay v. F. N. Balsara. Facts. The Bombay Prohibition Act restricted possession and consumption of alcohol. Held. The court struck down only certain unconstitutional sections but upheld the rest of the Act. Principle. A statute is not invalid as a whole merely because some provisions are unconstitutional. Importance of Doctrine of Severability. Protects valid parts of legislation. Respects legislative intention. Prevents unnecessary invalidation of entire laws. Maintains balance between judiciary and legislature. Conclusion. The doctrine of severability is an important principle under Article 13 which ensures that when a law contains unconstitutional provisions, only the invalid part is struck down while the rest of the law remains effective. This doctrine helps preserve valid legislation and uphold constitutional supremacy.